Today, we're going to be looking at my 5 most overrated movies based on the IMDB top 250 ranked movies list. We finished this list with a double dip of 2 movies that both rank in the top 5. I'm sure I'm going to make a lot of people angry today. Don't forget to subscribe though, and let me know how good or bad I did down in the comments. First up on this list is a movie that came in at number 30. It's a classic that is fun and exciting. The only problem is, it's just not nearly as good as people make it out to be. And that movie is Back to the Future. This movie's use of time travel is wildly inconsistent, and at some points it makes very little sense. Like, why does the photograph fade slowly and not quickly? And not addressing the paradoxes of time travel like the grandfather paradox? Or do they just create alternate timelines? There are many characters that feel very stereotypical and one-dimensional, like Biff and his friends. The film is fairly predictable and has a very cookie-cutter ending. I had a lot of fun watching this movie many times over. It's fun and it's exciting and it's filled with lots of laughs, but it's not the 30th best movie of all time. I feel this movie would be much more appropriately fitted around the 60 to 80 range. Now next up, we got a movie that comes in at number 28 on this list. Though this movie was groundbreaking for its time, it's just not as good as people make it out to be. And that movie is Terminator 2: Judgment Day. I bet some of you are just as surprised as me that this movie is this high on the list. This movie is clearly the best movie in the series, but it's a big departure from the original. Where the original was grittier and more suspenseful, T2 is more action-packed blockbuster style. Seeing Sarah Connor transform into a hardened warrior just doesn't seem to be believable. John Connor, who is supposed to be the future leader of humanity, is reduced mainly to doing his best Robin impression in this movie. There are several convenient plot devices, like how the T-800 can all of a sudden understand human emotion, and how there just happens to be liquid nitrogen that defeats the T-1000. Now don't get me wrong, this is a fun and exciting movie, but number 28 of all time, please don't insult me anymore. This movie belongs more outside the top 100 than it does on the inside. Now to the next movie on this list, comes in at number 19, and its rating is out of this world. The movie is Interstellar. This movie is visually stunning and very ambitious, but there are several scientific inaccuracies and plot holes in this movie that make it not as good as people make it out to be. The first example being the time dilation on Miller's planet. Those on the ship should have been affected the same as those on the planet, contrary to how it played out in the movie for solely a narrative purpose. It also leaves so many questions unanswered, like how did Cooper survive the black hole? And how did he end up back in our solar system? The film has overly emotional dialogue that feels forced at times, like when they talk about love being the only thing that can transcend space and time. It also has some underdeveloped characters that just serve as plot devices, like Romilly and Doyle. And the pacing of this movie is a bit all over the place, which leads to extremely slow points that just kind of drag on. I really did enjoy the movie though, but I don't think it needs to be this high in the list. Top 50 for sure, but it's not in the top 20. Have I missed any movies so far that you should have thought have been on this list? If you're enjoying this video, make sure to give it a like. Now, let's move on to the final 2. We finished this list off with a little double dip in the top 5. These movies came in at number 2 and number 4 on this list. The reason I'm lumping them both together is because they're directly connected to each other. And if you haven't figured it out by now, they're The Godfather and The Godfather 2. Both of these films, especially Part 2, are paced at a slow, methodical burn with runtimes near 3 hours. Each of these movies can just wear down the viewer. Scenes like the wedding sequence in The Godfather and the subplot with Frankie Pentagelli in Part 2 just show how they draw the movies out longer than they need to be. These stories do lack a certain amount of depth at points, with their showcasing of stereotypical Italian-American culture and their one-dimensional female characters who are just there as reactionary pieces but offer very little to the overall plot. As many critics have pointed out, Part 2 retreads on a lot of the same themes and plot points from the original, like Michael's descent into corruption and isolation, making it less impactful. Now, I'm not saying that both of these films are not good films. I still believe they're both very, very good films. But because of the reasons I mentioned, I don't think they need to be considered as two of the top 4 highest ranked movies of all time. They both belong in the top 25 for sure. And the original probably belongs in the top 15, closing in on top 10, but definitely not number 2 and number 4. There you have it, folks. The most overrated movies of all time. Well, at least in my universe. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and then check out this video right here. Until I see you again in the next video, moviegoers, have a good one.